Welcome, gentlemen and ladies, to our first edition of Comic Book Gurus Interviews. This is Comic Book Gurus Podcast. My name is Craig Legines. I'm your host, and joining me, as always, are my Comic Book Gurus Podcast tag team partners, Mr. Rockstar Rob and Miss Steph.
Hello.
Joining us today, someone I cannot wait to talk to because we've already waited to talk to him for such a long time. It's an honor to have as our first guest on Comic Book Gurus Interviews, the one, the only, Tim Sheridan. Tim, thank you so much for joining us and for bringing your wonderful menagerie of inactive figures behind you.
This is but a small sample of the many figures that surround me while I work.
So you always got all eyes on you. That's great.
That's how it is. Yeah, that's how it is.
Your story is fascinating to me because you're a huge comic book fan, like all of us are, and you, like me, you were captured with the death of Superman. One of the biggest selling comic books of all time. And how did you go from reading that to getting pitched, say, hey, do you want to do the death of Superman? Because your videos and your DVD collection is amazing. And the Reign of the Superman was one of the first DC movies I ever bought, owned outright.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's
yes.
Great. I'm glad to hear that. That was my first DC movie, and it was it was strange because when I was a kid, Death of Superman, you know how huge it was. It was all over the news. People who knew nothing about comic books knew about that comic book. And I was not really all that interested in it. I was a Batman fan, and I hadn't bought any Superman comics at that point. And to me, I felt like, well, you've told me the ending already, so why should I read this? But then Reign of the Supermen came out, and that to me, it's so. I think it's very like the kind of stuff I still gravitate toward. It was full of possibility. There were these new characters, and one of them might really be Superman. Who is it? There was a mystery. It was exciting. There were all these new designs for these new ways to think about Superman. So that, to me, those were the first Superman comics I ever bought. Was the Reign of the Superman arc, and I loved it. And then fast forward many years later, I was working. I got my first job in television on an animated series called Justice League Action, which a lot of people never saw because there was one cartoon they would air in the morning on Saturday, early Saturday morning, and if you didn't get up at 4:00, you missed it. But it's a terrific show. I was very proud to be a part of it. And out of that show, when I was done with my work on that, they asked me, hey, we just are producing Death of Superman. Would you be interested in working on adapting Death of Superman Part 2? And I said, oh, you mean Reign of the Superman? And they said, oh, obviously you're the guy. So, just for knowing the actual title, I guess. And so we started working on it, and it was an amazing experience.
Excellent. Did you have a question, Rob?
Yeah, I wanted to know, like, I was reading some stuff about you, and I saw, like, some of the books. Like, you're very much a DC guy. And I'll tell you a funny thing. You're a Batman guy. My first word as a little kid was Batman, so.
Oh, really?
Batman, yeah, Batman's important. But,
That's
like,
amazing.
So I grew up as, a child inundated with comics and comic characters. So what did you do that got you there? What happened I'm a kid that loves this stuff, and then boom, I'm in the middle of it.
I've talked about it before, so I won't talk too much about it, but I was at San Diego Comic-Con. I was kind of listless in my career. I didn't know what I should focus on and what I should do. And I was at in Ballroom 20, where they premiered all the animated Warner Brothers DC movies, and I watched the premiere of the Flashpoint Paradox, and I walked out of the room, and when it was done, and I said to my best friend who was with me, I said, "That's what I want to do." It was so clear to me, and the irony is that it was only a few years later that I was working with the very team that made Flashpoint Paradox on Reign of the Supermen. And through that was just, living in Hollywood. You meet people, you take all kinds of strange jobs that lead you to other strange jobs that eventually get you to the doors that you want to knock on. And hopefully there's somebody there who will let you in, and hopefully you've trained yourself and you've gotten your craft honed in such a way that when the door opens, you are able to keep it open for yourself. And that's what I did. That's what I did going into animation. And that's kind of what happened going into comics as well. Comics for me came after my animation career started. DC wanted to bring in some new writers, and they looked to guys like me who had experience with the characters and with the mythology, and that we're used to working in television where we work with a lot of other writers in one room, and we can all work on a story together and play nice. And so that was what I was able to leverage my work as, in animation, to be in that room when it was time to start working on DC Comics and sort of fulfill a childhood dream.
So do you think if you could go back and see the childhood version of you and tell him what you were going to do, would he believe you?
No, I talk to that kid all the time. I feel like that's I was talking to somebody. I was talking to Mark Guggenheim the other day, and he said
Wow.
he said something like he's a servant to his 12-year-old self. And I feel like that's exactly, he just, the guy's away with words, right? He nailed it. That's exactly how I feel. So yeah, that kid, I write a lot of stuff for that kid,
Cool.
I wrote a movie called Man of Tomorrow, a Superman movie after Reign of the Supermen. That was very much a movie that I would have wanted when I was a kid, that when I was a teenager, and figuring out who the man was that I was going to be tomorrow. And so that was kind of a little bit of a message in a bottle back in time to myself.
Very cool.
Steph, I know you wanted to ask something about the Long Halloween, or did I get you mixed up with someone else I know?
I'll talk about the Long Halloween all day and all night. If you got any questions, if you don't have any questions, I'll talk about
it. Well, for me, the Long Halloween.
As a Batman lover, you must have loved doing that.
Oh, it was probably the most, and this is so disturbing because if you know the story, it's a serial killer murder mystery, and yet it was maybe the most fun I've ever had working on anything. I just, because I love that book so much, I love the story so much, the puzzle of solving the puzzle of turning that brilliant piece of literature into a movie, or two movies. That was a fun exercise and something I just really sunk my teeth into and enjoyed. The crew I worked with were incredible on that, and we had a really amazing time. And it ended up spawning an entire cycle of movies. That was the first movie that we worked on that was in what fans lovingly call the Tomorrowverse now. But they released Man of Tomorrow before Long Halloween, so it ended up being the first movie in the cycle, even though Long Halloween was the first one we actually made. And it was, I love those movies dearly.
Well, the Long Halloween to me has always been the Godfather story of the Batman. The first line of the Godfather was "I believe in America." The first line of the Long Halloween is "I believe in Gotham City." And it captured, Batman fans and just like literature fans, for decades. When I guess the truest adaptation of that, other than your DVDs, was, I feel remiss if I didn't talk about this on Robert Pattinson's birthday, was the movie The Batman. Did you see it, and did you see any parallels between what you did on the Long Halloween and what the movie The Batman did with the Long Halloween?
Craig, I got to tell you, I was when I saw The Batman, I was waiting to see if there was anything in there that related to my screenplays for Long Halloween 1 and 2. And the reason is because I was talking earlier about how Man of Tomorrow got moved up in the order and was released before Long Halloween. The reason for that was because while we were in production on the Long Halloween, that's when Matt Reeves was hired to do The Batman. And there was a thought at Warner Brothers that he was going to do a straight adaptation of Long Halloween in those early days when he first was getting started, and that's why they put a pause on our production, because they wanted us to not release our adaptation before his movie would come out. Then eventually they realized that he wasn't doing an adaptation of Long Halloween specifically, and so they freed us up and we were able to put the movie out. But I still thought, I was like, oh, I wonder if Matt Reeves was able to like get a hold of my screenplays, and if there's anything, I'd be fascinating to know that. But I've never met Matt, so I don't know.
Darn. There's still time, though.
And by the way, I didn't see anything in the movie, in the Batman, that I thought was like, oh, that's like what we did I didn't actually end up seeing anything like that in the movies. So I think we're pretty safe knowing that Matt probably didn't know anything about my movies.
Yeah, he was pretty much just getting everything from the novel instead of touching your
exactly. But we had to do some tweaks and some adjustments, and brought some new things into the movies as well that you didn't see in the books. That's the nature of adapting a graphic novel for movies. They're not a one for one. Movies are a completely different medium, and so that meant that a lot of things had to happen in dialogue. It meant that there would be more character, more scene work that was happening that was maybe could be done more creatively in the comic book, with shadows and things that happen between panels and between pages, that as a reader you understand. But in a movie, you couldn't actually do that. It would kind of stop the movie dead. So we end up adding in some moments and stuff. So I always wondered, I was like, oh, it would be great if there was like a line that I wrote that like shows up somewhere else in the future, because people thought it came from the book, but it didn't. It came from the movie.
Did an amazing job. The reason why we're doing this is because you're going to be with us at Fan Expo Philadelphia. Yes, I know you just got really excited.
My first time ever in Philadelphia this weekend. I'm so excited.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
You're going to love it.
I can't wait.
Hopefully it's not raining like it is now.
That's okay.
That's all right. I won't melt.
Yeah. Now, are you doing a panel, or are you just have a booth set up and people just come and tell you how great you are?
So sometimes they don't. Sometimes they say other things. No, that's usually on the internet. I will have a table. I will be signing all 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then different hours throughout the day, and those will be posted at the table. And then on Saturday, they've asked me to be on a panel with some pretty amazing folks and some friends of mine and colleagues in what they're calling the Superstar Comic Book Writers panel. So I feel like I will be trying to hold my own with superstars like Philip Kennedy Johnson and I think Stephanie Williams, I think, is on that panel.
Wow.
That'll be fun.
It will be fun. And speaking of fun, thank you for joining us today, for taking time out of your schedule. Thank you so much for your patience, and thank you for allowing us to geek out with you with the stuff that we love. Outside of Fan Expo Philly, which we're looking forward to seeing you and welcoming you to our city. We can't wait. Anything you want to say to your fans and the people that have supported you all these years?
Well, first of all, let me say thank you so much for having me. And this was a lot of fun. And getting to talk about some of the animated stuff is always great. I want to tell everyone about I've taken over Star Trek Lower Decks, the comic book from IDW. And that first issue just came out this week that I've written, issue 7. And also look for my work in this year's DC Pride book. This year, it's not just an anthology; it's an entire story. It's a big 80-page story, and so I've gotten to do some work on that. And look what just arrived! Just delivered this small book of Masters of the Universe: Revelation and Revolution, the Netflix series that I worked on with Kevin Smith, which is available as a physical release now. So check that out.
Yeah, we will.
Will you have anything at the table for?
Oh yeah, we'll have
signings.
We'll have books and movies and also some scripts and screenplays and stuff like Long Halloween screenplays and things like that. So those will be available in Artist Alley, wherever my table is going to be. I don't know where it's located exactly yet, but it's in Artist Alley. So come on by.
We'll find you. Tim, thank you so much. Please enjoy Philadelphia. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for being part of Fan Expo Philadelphia. And thank you for being a fellow comic book guru. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.